Hey, this Ramon channel is Alpha 4, and here's a different view you guys don't usually get. That calendar has the wrong date on it, but who cares? This is my room. This is where I do most of my writing, and up there is Batman, which you can't really see. Down here is the X-Men. I actually saw this movie with my coworkers. I actually went to the wrong theater first. All it said was Joker movie, and so I went to the wrong theater. I went to actually a very nice theater, and I actually want to talk about that before I get into the movie. So there's been a lot of hype about security at the Joker showings. And first I went to one that was in a downtown area. It's a little bit of a rougher neighborhood. It was packed. The theater was packed. There were a lot of people there. The theater was really nice. It was the XD showing, and there was no real security. There was no real presence. There were no cops checking anything. And while there was the same security that's usually there, and maybe they were a little bit more alert, everything was kind of peaceful, and the movie started and there wasn't any problem. Then when I realized I was at the wrong theater because I didn't see any of my coworkers, I went to the north part of town, in a much nicer neighborhood, actually a theater that is right next to my house. And there they had tight security. The police officer actually checked the exits, looked over everyone who came in, and even gave a signal to the projectionist before they would turn off the lights. And it changed the mood of the movie. When I was at the other theater, the mood was actually a little bit more jovial going into it, because I guess people hadn't heard yet that it's kind of a depressing film. While at my second showing that I went to, it was the mood that the police officer, the security brought in was more nerve-wracking than the movie itself. The fear-mongering and the propaganda behind that, the manufactured propaganda behind that, really made the whole movie begin on a somber note. Which then let's get into the movie. So as you can see back here, I have read all the good Joker stuff. Everything from Azzarello to Moore to Morrison to the 80th anniversary of Joker, or 75th anniversary of Joker, to Snyder Joker. So I'm very familiar with the character. And one of the things that worried me going into it is that they were giving the character of Joker a name. I never liked that. Even Jack Napier, I'm not a fan of that being his name, although I've grown accustomed to that. So going into the movie, I was very hesitant. And I had watched a review by John Campea and by Jeremy Johns before I went in. And the review was positive, but it let me know that it was going to be a more cerebral film, so I wasn't expecting too much hijinks. That made me sit in the movie much easier. It made me accept the movie a lot easier. I was expecting it to be an Elseworld story, and I was worried that at worst it was going to be kind of like Gotham, where they were going to have a pre-Joker. Luckily, this movie does neither of those, or does both, depending on how you look at it. The character of Arthur Fleck is not an incel. I don't know where that came from. I don't know how that became the story, but it's not. He's also not a racist. He's also not a bigot. He's also not a homophobe. In fact, one of the story beats in the movie, that of whatever his relationship is to Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne, had me nervous that they were going to take away Joker's, if you will, sapiosexual attraction to authority figures. But it didn't. Luckily, it didn't go that route, because one of the themes that have developed over the years in the Joker story is that Joker is in love with Batman. That's part of the reason why he hates Bruce Wayne. He knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne, but Bruce Wayne doesn't matter. What matters is the bat. So there's that interesting dichotomy, and I was worried they're going to take that away. Again, they didn't, or they did. One of the things that makes Joker's origins so great is that they're multiple choice. I think the best origin that I've seen for the Joker, outside of the original Red Hood storyline, which is where he falls into the acid and comes back as the Joker, and I actually I'll get into that. That I thought that was the one thing that was missing in the story. I think the two best versions of that are obviously the original one from the first run, and then also the reinterpretation as it was done by Scott Snyder. I think those are the two best takes on the Red Hood origin of the Joker. The next best origin for the Joker is going to be from here, from Alan Moore. I think Alan Moore has the next best take. He needs to be a struggling comic. He needs to be pulled into the underworld. He needs to be a wannabe gangster. And that was the missing element, was the wannabe gangster. And because the story did a really good job of making sure everything was multiple choice, I think it would have been a good thread to have stories in the background of the Red Hood gang. If you're not going to have Joker be the Red Hood, have that story going on in the background. As a film, I thought it was great. I love the Before Midnight, Before Sunrise movies. I love talkie movies, so this was right up there. I loved it. I thought the performances were up there with Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. I thought it was a great performance. It did remind me a lot of Taxi Driver. I have not seen King of Comedy, but I know a lot of people have said that it also pulls a lot from King of Comedy, but then so does The Killing Joke. As for the twisting of reality, didn't bother me. I do think this Joker is too old, but I did hear a great explanation that this is Joker after Batman has captured him, and he's remembering all of this backwards, so he's projecting himself as he is now back into who Arthur Fleck was, if Arthur Fleck even existed. There is the possibility that all of this is just the ravings of a madman, that it wasn't even real, which is also a cool trick. And I like to think, personally, that the whole story is the Joker, after being caught by Batman, after him figuring out that Batman is Bruce Wayne, trying to find a way to connect his story and the things that really happened to him with Batman, even though the timing isn't correct. So maybe his stuff happened 10 years after whatever happened to Batman, to Bruce Wayne happened. But he's trying to find a way to connect those two things so that way he's the cause of what created his greatest nemesis, his greatest obsession. So I like to think that that's what was happening. That was the dynamic of the story. But again, it's all projection, and that's kind of the point of the story. I think the big controversy here, I think the big thing that disturbs a lot of people is that it forces you to realize that anyone could become the Joker. Anyone could be the Joker, anyone could become the Joker. And that's the great horror trick here. That's the great gag, is that anyone could become the Joker. All it takes is one very bad day. And Arthur Fleck is a character who has had nothing but consecutive very bad days. And none of those individual things had turned him into the Joker yet. And so you could say, okay, well, this one aspect here, or this one aspect there was that straw. But they were all that straw. And I think that's where people get nervous about this movie, is that it's saying, hey, your very bad day, you're that close to being the Joker. You're that close to snapping and getting everything wrong. And you're that, those little lies you tell yourself and you tell everyone else, those aren't lies, those are delusions. And you're right on the edge of sanity. Just take one more step and you're gone. That's what the story's saying. It's a warning. And I think that's a great warning. I don't think it's a deep conversation about incel philosophy or power dynamics. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's just simply talking about how anybody is just one very bad day away from making the wrong choice, from delving into their fantasy and leaving reality, just going a little bit too far. And that's what the Joker does. He just starts going a little bit too far, and then too far goes way too far. And that's a very scary thing to realize, that anyone could become the Joker. You're taking care of your parents, and your parents don't appreciate it, and they're elderly, or they got some mental illness. You're disrespected at work. You get jumped one too many times. You get beat up. You're in love with someone who doesn't love you back. You're in love with someone who doesn't even know you exist. You've invented a fantasy of someone that you love, but it's not real. Like, you're just one step away. And that's what's scary, is that anybody could be the Joker. Anyone could get fired from work. Anyone could just make the wrong call. That's the power of this movie. I personally don't think this is the best Joker origin. I don't even think this is the best Joker movie or best Joker on film. I personally am very fond of the Joker from the Batman animated series and the Joker from 1989's Joker. I think those two Jokers are the better Jokers. I do think it's too bad that they killed that Joker in the story. I do think that the mistake of these stories are when they kill the Joker. So not killing the Joker here, I think, was the correct move. The idea that this guy might not even be the Joker, he'd just be inventing the story, is also very interesting. I'd give it a 3 out of 5. It's definitely a thumbs up, but it's not a perfect film. It's not the most enjoyable film. I left the film feeling grossed out, feeling disgusted. So I think it's a very powerful movie. You should watch this movie. It's going to make you feel like crap, and that's the whole point. It's trying to make you feel like crap. And in that way, I think it's brilliant. It's not on my top 10 anything, but I think it's a movie that should have been made, and I'm glad it was made. I'm glad I saw it. I want to see what comic book writers are going to do with what this story has done for the Joker. Because every single version, except for the original, has been influenced by the movies that preceded it. So I want to see what this movie is going to bring to the next generation of Batman writers as they reinterpret the Joker for future audiences. Anyway, peace, like, and subscribe. Talk to you all later. Hope you enjoyed this review. Have a great night.